It's different now. Yes, it is. Will you please just think about it? Together.
Welcome, y'all. We are back with our breakdown of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, which was titled Day 1 and directed by a director I'm a fan of, which is Kate Herron. For any MCU Marvel fans out there, that name might ring a bell because she was the director of all 6 episodes of what I consider to be one of the best shows that Marvel has put out. But we'll talk about the direction. We'll talk about the episode, but I want to know something from you all first. What did you think? This is our 4th episode of this new season. This is in my opinion, the second episode of this season, because I feel like episodes 1 and 2 were more like an epilogue to season 1, and episode 3 was kind of the kicking off point, the reset, the pilot, if you want to call it that, for this other part of the story. So with that said, let me know what you all thought of the episode, the highs, the lows, the direction, the writing. My initial impressions before we really get into the nitty-gritty. My least favorite episode was tonight. We'll get into my reasons why, but just off the top, I thought the writing was pretty poor. I thought the direction was kind of inconsistent, and I thought that there were just things in this episode that just felt off. There was a lack of sense of urgency from Dina and Ellie, and it was very clunky. And we'll break that down. But positively speaking, some good action sequences, some good thrilling, suspenseful moments, the backstory with Isaac that we have. This war that I'm new to between the Scars and the Wolves and all the stuff's going there. So there is some good to be had in tonight's episode, but when you look at the full body of work here, pretty disappointing. But with all that being said, let's kind of get into the breakdown. So our opening scene here, really to me, and I'll just be honest with you all, this would be considered the B plot of the episode, and that's Isaac. I thought that was the strongest part of this episode from the get-go. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken horse, but just in case someone's watching one of my breakdowns for the first time, I'm a fan of the game, the first game. I've owned 2 copies of the game. I've played it several times, but I did not play game 2. So I knew some things about the game, the second game, but I wasn't, I don't know all the nuances and all the new characters. And this is one of those new things. I'm not too familiar with the Seattle storyline and all that stuff. So this is my first time being introduced to Isaac, played by the incredible Jeffrey Wright, who, from my understanding, was the voice of the actor, of the character Isaac in the video game. And luckily enough, I would imagine the age of Isaac and the age of Jeffrey Wright kind of lines up so they can bring the actor who voiced the character into the live action, unlike some of the other characters obviously aged out of their roles or what have you. So with all that being said, this opening scene sets the mood and really intrigues me with Isaac. As the episode opens, we cut back to 2018, and there's a conversation being had around the Fedra individuals about a particular set of some individuals they came across, and the way they're talking about them is like they're less than, right? People that don't really matter to them. I think that's important, but something's about to happen here in a second, because Isaac says in this scene, he explains why they call them that name, and he has a kind of disdain about how they're speaking about them. And to me, I think that's pivotal, because I think Isaac is old school. I could be wrong, but I get the vibe that he's very old school, that he comes from a thought process or a belief of how people should be treated, how they used to be treated before, the Fedra took over, and how things used to be. This is kind of what I'm getting from him, because these guys in the truck seem to not have any care for the people. So he tells them, why they call them the voters and what have you, and they apologize and all that stuff. But again, I'm getting a sense that Isaac is not a fan of how Fedra and this new way that they carry themselves and how they treat people, how they talk about people, is not something that he's a fan of. He's not cut from that cloth. He's seen a lot of days, seen a lot of dark, seen a lot of death, seen a lot of change in people in the world. And I think the way that Fedra and these people are carrying themselves, I think Isaac is fed up. But they're having a conversation about, are you Isaac? He doesn't say yes, but he nods his head, confirming it's him. And we proceed to see Isaac take out his crew. He seemed to be pretty content with blowing up these guys in the truck and shooting one in the head. And then he takes one of them out. And the one that he decided to take out of the truck seemed to be kind of a new guy. Now, could be wrong, but him taking this new guy with him, to me, was almost like you haven't been set in the ways of Fedra. So he's maybe given this kid an opportunity to start from scratch, essentially. He's not embedded with the beliefs of Fedra and how they treat people. So I think he's giving him a chance to say, look, kid, you can either go with them and I'll just kill you right now, or you can come with me with, I'm assuming, is the beginnings of Wolf. I don't know if Wolf, again, I haven't played the game. I don't know if they're already like an established faction of, you know, a group of people, or if this is literally the origins. This young lady and Isaac are like the humble beginnings of this new group of people. I got from this scene, Isaac will kill you if you're not on his side. It's a pretty violent act and shows where he's at, that he's just fed up. He doesn't give them a chance he doesn't give them the opportunity like he gave the one young man, because I think he already knows they're set in their ways. This is a hell of a way to introduce a character to someone new like myself as an audience member, to someone that's cold, very no nonsensical, and comes from a different line of a thought process and how he handles his business. Jeffrey Wright, I don't need to let y'all know, but you know, for me, he's one of the greatest actors in his generation. He's always a chameleon. He can fit into any role. I haven't seen him in this type of a role in a long time, as far as I'm assuming he's going to be our villain moving forward, potentially. And this seems to be, again, the humble beginnings of him leaving that life of Fedra and beginning this new life as the leaders of the Wolves. So we have Ellie, we have Dina following them from last week. They're in Seattle. They're, you know, scavenging for resources, medicine, things of that nature to take on this journey with them. And we see, you know, them having a little back and forth banter, gathering stuff up, so her throwing up, and then the conversation about getting back with Jesse. There was a vibe that she was pregnant, and later on we obviously find that out in this episode. And she also, when she's in the medical area, you know, she pauses and she says going to use the restroom, and again, you can put two and two together to the conclusion that Dina is indeed pregnant, which is, they're looking, you know, Wilson, this kind of ties into my criticisms. Ellie is being very clumsy, being very like, this is her first, literally the episode's called Day One, but she's acting like this is her first day in the apocalypse. She's very careless, you know, dropping the door of the tank and not really, you know, Dina she sees the wolf signs on one of the towers, the radio towers. You know, let's just go. Let's go. And Dina's like, hey, normally when people do that, they want you to see that sign, and the chances of someone being on a high, you know, altitude or being on top of a hill and they could see us on horses and they could shoot us not knowing who we are is pretty likely. And Ellie's like, oh yeah, it's a good idea. Like, Ellie, why are you acting brand new? You would think certain things are like second nature, right? How to cross a corner, how to check a tank, how to be aware of your surroundings. It seems very Day One. I don't feel like she's, and again, I love nuance and character. I don't want my characters to be one thing, just to be brooding and angry and all that. I want to see some complexity, but I'm not seeing a vengeful, hateful, mad, angry filled Ellie that I would think she would be at this point, right? I am to assume that this whole song and dance, when I'm being kind of facetious, but I would assume this moment between Ellie and Dina as she's playing the song. Great song, by the way. And Bella sounded pretty solid. Emotions are high and there's love in the air. And of course, Dina is a baby on the way, so sensitive to situations like this. But I am to assume that they took this break from the infected and the Abby mission and the stakes being high and being in this unknown territory where you don't know who's watching you. I would assume that this is like a video game moment. It seems like a video game moment, like something that was literally taken from the video game. And I would assume, again, let my gamers out there let me know this was like a big moment for the two characters to come together. And this seems like the moment that Dina saw the love of her life, potentially. Again, I could understand on paper how this could be pivotal, but I just feel like with all the shit that's going on right now and the mission that they're on right now, priorities. Let's scout out the area. Let's not bang on instruments that can attract the infected on top of humans that are around the perimeter. I don't know. Again, we establish Ellie, Dina, the love is in the air, the romance is in the air, and it's kind of, in my opinion, distracting them from the, not even necessarily the mission, but just distracting them of being on their P's and Q's. Ellie definitely seems to be very distracted right now, which is a bit frustrating, if I'm being honest. But back to the good stuff. Jeffrey Wright. He's talking to this, I believe the character name was Malcolm. A lot to explore in this scene. Again, being new to this story, this particular part of the story, and the particular, the second part of the game, this war between the wolves and the scars and the dedication that the scars have, right? Malcolm tells Isaac, like, we would die for her. We're gonna win this war. And even before that, he burns his hand, and Malcolm doesn't break. If anything, he's embracing this level of torture because it is almost like a ritual of the prophet that they followed. It's almost like she's watching over me and she would be proud of me for not giving up any information, letting you know where our team's gonna hit. And they're going back and forth about their ways of war. You know, you've killed our kids, you killed our kids, you know, who started, what came first, the chicken and the egg, and yada yada yada, which again I'm very curious to know where this began. This is the best part of the episode. This understanding, this origins, this backstory, this war going on right now is very intriguing. But as they're going back and forth and Isaac's about to burn him again, the Malcolm sticks his hand, do your worst, do what you got to do. And once he said that, Isaac just shot him because he knew he wasn't going to get anything out of him. This world has turned people. Again, we saw this young guy at the beginning of the episode, and we see he's almost, I don't say lifeless, but he's just as cold as Isaac, right? We saw him at the beginning. He didn't even know how to hold a gun. He was all scared and nervous and didn't know what to say or what to do after Isaac killed those Fedra guards or forces. And now he's just like, I don't have the direct quote, but he says the animal deserved it, right? Isaac has converted him, right? It's almost like this interesting idea of religion or what you believe in this world of The Last of Us. People followed this prophet, and then the same thing with Isaac and the wolves. They're just following his ideology and his beliefs and how he wants to operate. So it is an interesting theme of just like how society finds ways to find things to believe in, even if it takes their humanity away, right? It's just like, I guess it's some form of hope. It's like any religion, not to get too religious here, but at any form of religion, it's like something to believe in that's greater than yourself and something to wake up and have hope for, even if it means at the expense of killing others. So now we're in the second half of the episode. And again, at this point in the episode, I'm like, okay, you know, we're developing this relationship, even though I didn't feel like it was the placement and the lack of urgency was kind of bothering, but I'm like, okay, it's still developing these characters and I still enjoy watching them kind of connect and what have you. But on the other side, we have the Isaac stuff and the Fedra and the scars and the wolves. I'm like, okay, we're cooking with some gas here. This is a really interesting episode. I'm liking where the story's kind of setting things up. So nightfall, Ellie, Dina, scavenging around, looking around. They come across this area where they find, and I'm not going to put on the screen because it is pretty graphic. Kind of caught me by surprise. I mean, yes, the show is graphic, but this was pretty damn graphic. And, you know, the scene I'm referring to is as they walk into this room, they see the bodies of the wolves with their intestines out of their body. It's very graphic, very, very telling. Again, from a narrative perspective, it's like these scars are savages. Like that is one thing just to, you know, we saw how the wolves just seemed to pretty much just shoot them dead from what we saw in last week's episode with their bodies on the ground, but they didn't seem to take pleasure in carving them up. That is pretty. And then also I would imagine it was to send a message because it was written on the wall. They hear someone's coming and we see it's the wolves and they find fallen friends and fellow soldiers are gutted. They're out for blood. They say, hey, fan out. There might be some other scars here. I don't care if it's children, men, women, whatever. If you see them, kill them. Ellie and Dina in a predicament as they're trying to, again, you know, based on this being on a video game, you would imagine in the game, you're trying to obviously not get caught and you're crouching and, you know, you're not trying to step on things. So very, very very Last of Us moment here, which I love. She attacks him and, you know, she's and again, we saw her train earlier in the season. So we understand that she can hold her own to an extent. And while she's taking him down, you know, he gets the advantage and is about to shoot Ellie. But then this is where Dina comes in, pops him in the head. Obviously, their cover's been blown. They're running from the wolves. They find an opening. They make their way, again, thinking about the video game, when you're crouching and it's very, you know, tight quarters in the game. And obviously we see that here. They make their way into this tunnel. Give credit where credit is due. This show's production is outstanding. Like, I love this set. As I was watching the episode during our watch party, I kept thinking of, like, obviously the video game, they're adapting that, but just I'm thinking, like, if I was in this predicament, in this situation, this feels like a ride at Universal, at Scarefest. So very cool set, dark and ominous, and you don't know what's around the corner, and signals the fungi to its hive mind, so it communicates through the fungus and it attracts the infected. And regardless of how I feel about this second half, this was exciting. This was, obviously, in my mind, you try to be in the moment with these type of scenes, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, plot armor. You're not going to kill Ellie and Dina in this moment. But you're not thinking about that because that's signs of good direction, good storytelling. It's just like you put that aside for a second. Like, you're not going to kill the main characters in this moment, even though we just lost the main character 2 episodes ago. But it's just like, you're not going to just continue to kill characters after every other episode. But neither here nor there. It was like an army, at least 100 plus clickers, but it was just it was captured so well. And the way it was shot was very terrifying. Just like on the edge of my seat watching the horde come at them and tearing through the soldiers. And obviously we care for our main characters in the situation and in peril, and they're jumping on the train, they're going through the corridors of the train. Like, this was a great scene here. Really well done. Really well done. As the scene progresses, they attempt to make their way out of the train station. They make their way upstairs, and a big moment happens here. As we see on the screen now, the infected was about to go in on Dina, and Ellie puts her hand right in front of her. Obviously, Ellie knows she's going to be okay, but Dina doesn't know that, right? So that's some true romance. She really is 10 toes down, fully in love with Dina to do that. Obviously, I don't even think, that this happens so quickly. I mean, just because she's immune doesn't mean that the zombie can't just rip through her arm and grab her, and, other stuff could have went down. So it was just a matter of, I'm going to protect you by any means necessary. So that's a big moment for not only Ellie, but to Dina to see that. And obviously on multiple levels, she just sacrificed herself for me, but also she just got bit. So it's a conflict, right? It's a big dilemma that they find themselves in, especially from Dina's perspective. So they make it out, and immediately Dina's shooken. She just like she grabs her gun, and she follows Ellie into this abandoned. It looked like it was like a theater, if I'm not mistaken, to the theater, and then she immediately points the gun at Ellie, rightfully so. Again, we've seen Dina is very on her P's and Q's. She's very much aware, even if she is somewhat distracted by the attraction of being with Ellie. She is very much like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I got to do this. This is where some of the writing felt a little underwhelming and didn't feel as intense. I didn't feel the sense of urgency in the scene. That was a big issue that I had in this episode. It just felt tonally like it was off. Something was off about this episode. And this is an example here. She's trying to explain to her, and I mean, it's a tough predicament to be in. How do you explain to someone that you're immune, right? This is the first time Dina has probably ever heard of this, of someone being immune to the disease, to the infected. So of course she's going to say that she wants to survive. And I would imagine Dina has probably had her fair share of people. It's like, oh, I'm okay. Don't kill me. They've been in this world for so long, but I don't know if it was maybe the acting was off, the writing, it just felt clunky. Ellie's trying to explain to her, don't shoot. I'm immune. It's hard to imagine, but I'm gonna sleep over there. You can watch me overnight. I think it's just the execution of it all just felt underwhelming. And again, it was just felt off to me personally. I'm all for characters having a moment of realization that you're the one for me, I'm the one for you. We're in this world of chaos. We've seen it 1,000 times in stories. Before someone goes off the war, they have an intimate moment with their partner because they don't know if they're going to see them again. I get all that. But I guess for me in this scene, as we see, they wake up, Ellie says, I'm okay. And Dina tells her she is pregnant. And as soon as she tells her she's pregnant, they have their first intimate moment. They hook up. And again, if there's a time and a place, if this was maybe in Jackson, if the stakes weren't so high, you literally just survived, barely survived. If she wasn't immune, I'm referring to Ellie, she would have been dead. It just felt like just the bad timing. And I guess, and again, I don't know if this happens in the game the way it shakes out. It just felt not the right time to have that moment, to me. Now, of course, Gina tells her the reason because Ellie asks her, what changed? Why now? And she explains to her, when you saved me, I thought I envisioned this life with us, and I thought that was gone. So now knowing that you're okay, I'm okay, the baby's okay, I just thought that was a perfect opportunity. And I get it. Adrenaline's, listen, I've never been in that position, being chased by infected people as well as people trying to kill me. But I get the idea of just like, you only got one life. You don't know how much time on earth you have. You don't know, if you can tell that person you love them. So I get all that. And then plus, when you put yourself in their shoes, this is to a, heightened to another level. But it just felt very random. And again, to me, this whole episode just lacked this sense of urgency and lacked the sense of like desperation. And again, I feel like Ellie, I don't want to say she's forgotten about her mission, about why she's here and why they're in Seattle, but it kind of feels that way. And I get that she's with the person she cares for, and now they're together. And even that scene when they're like, after they hooked up and they're talking, and it's just like pillow talk, essentially. It's just like, guys, what are you doing? Like, you don't know if you're safe anymore. You don't know if there's a whole army outside waiting for you. You don't know if the horde's still, it felt like a scene. It felt like a scene from another show. Like, I feel like I was watching something on Freeform. I don't know. It just felt off. She tells, and then the Ellie of it all, she's like, we're going to have a baby. I'm going to be a dad. It's like, I guess me, you, and Jesse, we'll figure it out. It's just like, what? Y'all, and if I'm Dina, I'm like, hold your horses. I mean, we just, I don't know. They're, I don't say kids, but they're 19, 20-year-olds. They don't know any better. I don't know. It just felt like a different show, I guess is where I'm getting at. I felt like not a world that I've been, I feel like just a different tone, different writing, and just felt off. I don't want to get this twisted. Like, oh, you don't love. You don't want, no, it's not that. It's just, to me, it's a time and a place, and it's a way you can execute it. And it just felt like came out of nowhere. But I'm sure people at home that played the games like, no, this is how the scene went. This is a 1-for-1. But I'll find out in the comments. If that is the case, if this is how it played out, even if it, and again, this speaks like, even if it happened in the game, it doesn't necessarily mean you got to like it. Just because it was in a game doesn't mean you have to like, oh, just because in the game, it's perfect. No, there's a way to execute things. I just felt that the execution was pretty poor. I'm sorry, Ellie. Have you forgotten that you are trying to kill Abby and you got an army? I don't know. It feels very childish to me. And I would just think that Ellie would be so much more hardened, more cold, more like gun hole on the, I don't know. Anyway, at this point, as we wrap up the back half of the episode, they hear there's commotion outside. There's essentially the war that we've been leading to believe is going on between the scars of the wolves, and Nora's name is brought up. And of course, we know Nora was part of the crew. I wouldn't be mad at you if you decide to leave, for obvious reasons. You are about to be a mother of a child, so it probably makes sense that you would take caution in your moves. But Ellie and Dina are now fully in love, and love conquers the zombie apocalypse and conquers survival and logic. But I'm assuming from this point on, it's Ellie and Dina, all the way. They're in it to win it. They're looking over in the war and seeing what they're about to walk into, and Dina tells her we're together. A little irresponsible for a soon-to-be mother. But also, I think you fall back and retreat, man. This is too much. I don't think Ellie. Listen, I love Ellie. I'm a big fan of the Dina character, but it's just like, what is the mission? I don't even understand. Obviously, she wants to kill Abby, but it's just like, it just seems so sloppy. And I get, sometimes when you're trying to get revenge in these type of stories, you overcome it. Your logic is kind of buried down, but it just seems so a tough pill to swallow and a tough hill to climb. But I guess we'll find out what comes of it. But as we wrap up the breakdown, and we'll continue our live discussion here, but this was my least favorite episode, as I mentioned up top, and reasons being, I just felt that the writing was very underwhelming, but also just the situations we found our characters in this episode, and their lack of urgency, their lack of where they are, their placement, and knowing the time and place and how to react to certain things, or lack of reactions, just felt very very YA. And just didn't feel like the show that I've seen before. It just felt very, very different. Now, what does that mean moving forward? Is this more of what's going to come in this just new chapter of Ellie and Dina, and things like this are going to be more of an occurrence, as far as the love story being more of a focus, and what have you? How does Abby get back into the fold? It's going to be intriguing. So that stuff right now, I'm a little curious about. I'm a little concerned about, if I'm being honest, because I didn't like the way it was handled in this episode. Not every show is going to bat 100. So, but anyway, the thing that I did like about the episode, Isaac, the war with the wolves, the scars, and their, the wolves or the scars and their belief in the prophet and all that stuff. That's intriguing. But let me know in the comments. What did you like? What did you love? What are you looking forward to moving forward? And again, I would love to know from not only my TV watchers like myself, who's experiencing this story for the first time, but my video gamers. How did this episode adapt the game at this point in the story? In a relationship, the reveal that she's pregnant, the moment of them finally, having an intimate moment, the guitar scene, the train scene. Let me know, the major difference. I'm sure there are differences, but let me know in the comments. I would love to know. But with all that being said, we're going to continue the live discussion. But for those watching the breakdown, like, share, comment, consider subscribing, and consider joining the live stream. Every Sunday we go live to do a watch party, and then we have the live after show that's broken into this breakdown that you're all watching now. But come and join me next Sunday. With all that being said, I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.